Hi everyone, Adam Hart here. I want to discuss some perspectives I have thought of on the results sowed by modern feminism, how the core principles of MGTOW have affected men, and a more positive response to modern feminism as well as a social defense. In today's modern time, I find it difficult to clearly define modern feminism's purpose. Some feminists state that it is a movement for gender equality, and some say, indirectly mind you, 21st century feminism exists to battle or remove the 20th century mainstream traditionalist culture, gender roles, expectations, and stereotypes. But it seems some feminists are missing one thing: gender relevance. Where and when gender relevance roles and expectations are unnecessary, and this creates a caveat of gender equality or prejudice that goes unnoticed by the particular feminist that makes this mistake. The result of applying unnecessary gender context is that many people, regardless of cultural values, perceive feminists pushing gender inequality or downright being sexist. That these certain feminists claim feminism supports gender equality, they aren't able to comprehend that they have made this error. Here's one example of this mistake. In a sociology class, a female identified as being a feminist, but believed that males should pay for the date. Expecting a male to pay the date and not split the bill or come to a mutual agreement on payment percentage is a patriarchal element in 20th century mainstream traditionalism's little gender expectation, something feminism would frown upon. I have seen videos on YouTube of countless young women claiming men should pay the date, and likely so, if not many, probably identify as a feminist. Enter MGTOW. The core belief of MGTOW is liberty and freedom of culture, the recognition of such, and like feminism, they both have a bad taste for the 20th century mainstream gender roles and expectations. Why do both groups dislike them? Because in some regards, these gender contexts are unnecessary and irrelevant. MGTOW men believe in splitting the bill or coming to a mutual agreement. Gender expectations and roles are not going to be recognized by men who realize they're free to shape their cultural values and beliefs. So, in an instant, they took power away from the quote-unquote men pay the date, end quote, patriarchal traditionalist gender role, which is one thing feminism has hoped to do. Because of the feminists unknowingly pushing patriarchal or traditional gender expectations or roles, whether or not it benefits them, MGTOW usually avoid marriage as a security measure that his hypothetical wife might push for a patriarchal marriage or attempt to use the court system against him should her lawyer and judge be in her favor, or even his favor. But there are possibly MGTOW men that could be dating a woman that also disregards gender roles and expectations, but does not identify as a feminist. How can this be? Supporting equality or gender equality does not make you a feminist. Identifying as a feminist and following the core values of feminism makes you a feminist. But here's the problem. Does feminism support equality or gender equality? Well, here's my perspective. For true gender equality, remove the gender connotations from situations, occupations, what have you, etc. Then, remove the word gender from equality. Then you're left with the word equality. Now, remove the word equality and replace it with opportunity. Equality means differently to everyone. So that doesn't seem very equal, does it? One reason could be, it could be a method of rallying people to follow your cause because equality sounds good to people. Quote unquote, Make America great again. Quote unquote, America needs change. Do you feel rallied? Do you feel motivated? I certainly hope not, because that would make me a douchey manipulator. I'll give another example of gender inequality that some feminists accidentally do by applying gender context where it's irrelevant or unnecessary or both. One might come across a feminist that is angry and questioning why there are more male feminists than there are female scientists. Why there are more male scientists than female scientists. Already they have committed gender inequality. Don't look at the number of scientists with a gendered or sex perspective. Any gender in America has an opportunity to pursue education and career. And since everyone, regardless of their situation, has their issues, sometimes it's harder for some, it's lighter for others. But regardless, risk and struggle is always involved. So look at it on the individual level. A person chose to become a scientist. They chose to pursue that field. It was their passion. It was their pride. Stop getting happy and stop getting mad that there is more or less of a certain gender in a certain field. Unless you have a certain legislation that puts a cap on which gender can be what. Because if you don't have that legislation, then the gender context is irrelevant, and you'll just make sexist people rallied and angry. And when a mob is rallied, they push for legislation that caps what gender can be what career, and it takes away from constitutional liberty. Men and women that have listened to this, people, gender's irrelevant. Made that mistake. Oops. If you agree with this video, don't be afraid to say, I'm not a feminist. But I am a PROL. A person / people realizing opportunities and liberty. Just like the feminists, I despise gender prejudice, especially where gender prejudice is irrelevant when put in unnecessary context. Like the feminist, I do not favor gender stereotypes and traditionalist gender roles. And like the MGTOW and the feminists, I support the freedom of self. Thank you for listening. Good night.